Hello everybody and welcome to the TARDIS Zone. Can you all hear me? I hope you can. I didn't see me thing moving there, so I got a bit worried. Yeah, that trailer intro skipped all the way for me, so I don't know if you got to see that intro. Perfect. But we're here for the Mandalorian Season 1 review. What we're going to do is we're just going to review the series as a whole. And then what we're going to do then is we're going after this. We are going to go live. I really shouldn't be saying that because this is going to be put up, and then it's probably going to take about 15 days for YouTube to monetize the thing. But anyway, let's get on with it and bring on our guests, because we do have we're going to be streaming here for about half an hour or so, because we've got another stream to do. So I'm going to bring on the guests. We've got one who, well, I think everybody here is a Star Wars fan. We've even had one working on the Disney trilogy, and we have a guy that's full of knowledge about Star Wars. Well, the two of them do, except me. So they're going to educate me as we go along, and we're going to enjoy. It's going to be fun. I can't wait for season 2, to be quite honest with you. I've already watched the 4th episode, and it was great. So let's bring on our guests. Fellowish man, yeah, one only Ninja 9.
How's it going, man? All right. How's
Hello,
things?
I'm good. I'm good. And how are you, my friend?
All's good, man. I'm looking forward to this now. Been a big fan of the Mandalorian, so looking forward to talking about it finally.
Brilliant, fantastic. And season 1 did start off very well, so it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts actually on how you thought season 1 went. But we can't have a panel without our next guest. He's a bit of a problem, isn't he, Ninja Knight? But he's our friend.
Big problem.
It's the one and only, the legend, Problem Being.
Greetings, I was on mute. Yeah, your audio was really crackly at the start there. It sounded like you were being mangled by Tron in a fight.
Right. Well, do you know what I think it is? I think it's because I've got the other stream set up. So I'll close this window because I can.
It's all right now. It's just like the whole introduction was. Yeah.
Yeah, the
like,
audio is good.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to restart.
No, we're good. Once everybody can hear me.
You sounded more.
It's all right now. It's all good.
Right, lads. We know why we're here, so we might as well get straight into it, because we have a time limit, because we want to do, obviously, the Mandalorian Season 2, the Marshal. We're going to do a watch-along discussion, and we're going to give our ratings and stuff like that. So, guys, first of all, we all know how this show came to fruition. There's been a backlash to Disney Star Wars ever since The Force Awakens, and it snowballed since then. Then the fandom menace obviously grew from all of this nonsense, and I do strongly believe that this show wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the fandom menace. They wanted to give.
Yep.
I think they know they've messed up, and I think they've went too deep. But they have tried to give us something, and Jon Favreau has come along, and we got the Mandalorian. So let's just get straight into it, guys. What did you guys think of season 1 of the Mandalorian, and what in particular in the Mandalorian? Why do you think this show has, in my eyes, I think this show has been a success? If you listen to other streamers out there, they would say that it's not. I disagree personally. But why do you think this show has been a success so far? Who would like to kick it all off tonight? And we got so.
I'll go first if you don't mind, if that's okay.
Yeah, walk away.
Yeah. So I think it's been particularly successful because it harkens back to what George Lucas originally wanted to do with these Star Wars movies and Star Wars, the IP. He wanted a Western basically set in space. And I think what's important as well too is that George Lucas also centered his stories around father and son relationships. And it's something that's been very much so missing in the last couple of years, not only in Star Wars, but throughout Hollywood. So when you get another kind of sort of father and son relationship between the Mandalorian and the child, the way it's done, I think it's done very, very well. You do have other kind of relationships that are happening within this galaxy, and I think it's highly interesting to see that this show came about as a space western. And it certainly, I think, brought a lot of surprises to an awful lot of people that were a little bit down in the dumps of what happened with Star Wars. I think when you look at the show, though, I think it's possible that the show was a bit of a remix of what was planned to be the Boba Fett movie with some of the stuff that happens, for example, like with the armor and stuff in the first couple of episodes. But I think overall it works well, and I think they missed one beat for me that I think I would have liked to see, and it was they kept talking about how the Mandalorian was inspired by Clint Eastwood. Well, I personally think they should have gotten his son Scott Eastwood, who was also an actor, to play the Mandalorian. I think what better individual you could have had. But ultimately, I think Pedro Pascal does a good job. And if the rumours are true about season 2, I suppose we shall wait and see. But yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, look, as you know, guys, I'm not traditionally, I wouldn't be a hardcore Star Wars fan. I have, as I said, like you all, grown up, watched the original trilogy. I also watched the prequel trilogy, and yeah, like the rest of us, we watched the sequel trilogy, but we won't get into that one. But, you know, I've watched these movies, but I've never really had the connection that other Star Wars fans have had. But then The Mandalorian came along, and I don't know what it was. I mean, when I got the whole series sent to me, I said, I'll watch the first episode. It's probably going to be rubbish. And it wasn't. It hit the ground running. I want to ask you, actually, Ninja Knight, why do you think there's some negative reaction towards this show? I mean, you made a good point that you were on another stream. We won't mention names, but you were saying that someone was saying that, you know, what do Star Wars fans want? You know, this show is giving you something completely different to what they did in the movies. There's none of this identity politics going on, or none of the wokeness going on. I mean, why do you think there's still some Star Wars fans out there that refuse to, you know, give this show the credit where credit is due? Because I actually think that there's a lot of people being harsh out there with this show. As I said, I'm not traditionally a Star Wars fan, but this is making me a Star Wars fan. So for me personally, I want to say thank you, Jon Favreau, because, you know, you've made me a fan, and I'm loving the show. But why all this negativity? Why do you think the negativity is still there?
I think the negativity is there because I think the way Disney approached the whole thing, and I completely understand the point of view of these people that are upset with it, because they bought into a thing called the EU, the Expanded Universe, which was something that was greenlit by George Lucas, and a lot of projects and books and merchandise was made from these Expanded Universe. So I think when a company like Disney comes out and basically tells you that all of that stuff doesn't matter, it doesn't exist anymore, I think you upset a number of those fans, and I think it's very difficult to get them people back. I mean, we kind of see it in some of the other brands that have done that in the last number of years, that have told you essentially that canon doesn't matter. And it was a statement that was actually pretty much personified with what happened with the Disney sequel trilogy, that they didn't care about canon and what happened beforehand. And you know as well as I do, fans care about their canon. So when you decide to decanonize something and then you actually make many missteps and essentially tank the property for most of the part, I think they're right to be upset. I do think that there is going to be a bit of a watchful eye cast upon The Mandalorian, and I think people do want it to be absolutely outstanding, so it will blow them away. For me, I absolutely love it, but I think there always is that little doubt in my mind of when is the rug going to be pulled from underneath our feet. And I do understand that view because it does happen. But as a Star Wars fan, I love it.
Look, I mean, I'm becoming a Star Wars fan. I bloody absolutely love it. I thought season 1 was solid, and And I did say, season 2 would have to hit the ground running, and we will be going into that later on. We won't mention season 2 yet, but I do believe that they have, and I think it has improved even more now. But the child, we can't discuss the Mandalorian without discussing the child.
We can come to that. You haven't asked me a thing. I want to have my say now, damn it.
You have your say. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Lou. I just wanted to follow up. But you go ahead there.
Yeah, I totally agree with Ninja Knight. I think he's absolutely spot on. And I think there is still that worry there. And with good reason. Listen, people have been given the bait and switch scenario more times than we care to mention. So we're always on our toes. We're thinking, when are they going to pull the rug? Exactly that. I grew up, I was born in the mid-70s and sort of missed the cinematic side of the original Star Wars movie. But I remember, I think I must have been about five or six, I think, when it came on British TV for Easter. I think it was in Easter, and watching it on my friend's TV, and just being just mesmerized and excited and blown away by this incredible adventure that was unfolding before my eyes. Never seen anything like it in my life, my little short life at the time. And just being absolutely blown away, and pretty much like Doctor Who did for me as well. And but obviously this was something completely new, really, really completely different, and the effects and the story and the sets, and then everything was just magic, pure magic. And then obviously I went from there, to Empire, to finally going to see Return of the Jedi in the cinema. I wish to God I'd gone and seen Empire, but I was probably too young at the time. But I just remember, living Star Wars in the playground, and living Star Wars through the toys, especially when not Empire, but when Jedi came out. There were so many toys. I must have had at least half of the available merchandise. I think I must have done. It was just, but it was so much of it. But you just, begged and pestered your granny to get you all the figurines. And there was a time when there were like 10p per little figurine, and buying them up off the shelves because they were so cheap suddenly. But I mean, even 10p back then was a fair amount of money, I think, even then. But it was that much of a grip on a young mind, and I think that's something that stays with you as an adult. And this is where fandoms, I think, come from. It's like being touched by the hand of God. Bing, enlightened, and it stays with you like a religion. Because it is like a kind of a child's religious experience, I suppose. But going back to this, I think, like many, when this came about, very skeptical, obviously, because of what had gone on with the Star Wars movie franchise, and I kind of kept away from it. I thought, it just seems so cynical to me, and the whole Baby Yoda thing, I was very skeptical. I hadn't really I saw a clip and I thought, actually, that is rather cute. Eventually, I managed to get to see it, thanks to our friend Rabbi. Because it just simply wasn't available here, which is just insane to me. But I watched it, and I thought, I'll watch the first episode and I'll watch the second, give it a fair chance. Yeah. And then I watched the whole thing, I think, over 2 days, which is usually a good sign. And I was pleasantly surprised. I thought the episode lengths were just about right, I think, for the stories. I thought it lacked that sort of general padding that goes into the episodes. I don't think there was much in the way of filler. I think there was a lot of grumbling about filler episodes, but I didn't get that. I think there was one, like The Sanctuary, I think was the weakest episode. It was pretty cringe in a lot of areas, but I mean, that was one sort of standout thumbs downy kind of area. episode, I think, within the first season. But even then, it has some good bits in there. So I won't write it off entirely. But it was sort of more sort of, how many more minutes have I got left to this? Drag myself through. But apart from that, you know, it was really well paced. I can see people saying that this is like a cartoon in live action. I get that. I think that's a fair comment. But I think that the main
that was something that Pedro Pascal said.
Yeah, and Gary from Nerdorotic said that. And I do agree with that. And the music was, you know, not so great.
Yeah,
music is
improved.
incredible.
I think the music is improved from what I've heard from the first episode of series 2. Definite improvement there. I quite liked it. It's getting a lot of stick. I get that as well, but I don't think it's as bad as they're making it out to be.
Yeah.
Well, the clever thing about the music is if you listen to it really carefully, it does have a lot of Western themes as well to it. But what's very clever about it is when you first hear that music, and then towards the end of it, then there is like a twinkling kind of, and it is a childlike sound that you would hear, like a baby rattle or something. Like a music box. It's incredible, like the way, and it's just so subtle, and it lets you know what's going to happen. And at the end of the episode, the first one, of course, we do meet the child, and I think what perfect music. I love the music personally. I think it's excellent.
I think it fits. But I'll just say one more thing. I think the main criticism of it, which is also again fair. Listen, I don't have any problem with the criticisms thus far, but I think the main one that seems to stick out to me, which I don't see a problem with particularly because it's Star Wars, is that it's very simplistic. That it's not a complicated plot. There's not like many layers to it. It's not multi-layered. It's not contextualized with subplots and all the rest of it. It's quite. But I think sometimes life as a bounty hunter is pretty cut and dry. You know, I have to go off and kill someone today, or I have to go and do this job today. And, you know, how many subplots can you fit in there? You know, I mean, at least we haven't had the sort of romance over the top kind of thing that usually happens within these kind of things as thus far. But I think if you look at the original Star Wars movie, it's a simple plot, yet we loved that.
Yeah.
And I think we forget that Star Wars is not a complicated story. It really, really isn't. It's a very standard fairy tale kind of story. Boy meets girl, big bad villain. Oh, look, the good guys come in, rescue the damsel in distress, and off they go, and and it's all the hero's journey, you know. And I don't have a problem with it. Listen, this crosses generations, you know. It's not overly complicated. You know, it's great for small kids, I guess, and it's great for adults alike, family. It's not too violent for, you know, considering he's a bounty hunter and all the rest of it. And when they say
some Jawas,
and when I know there's some flaws with that, you know, how the Jawas seem to be on all these different planets and all the rest of it. But hey, I understand these things, but there's also the criticism of how long can they stretch out the story with the baby Yoda. Well, I'm sorry. Think about this. People who criticize that aspect of it, you are great fans of Guardians of the Galaxy. You've got a twig. You've got a twig as an animated little side character that's cute, and then one goes, oh, and you know, and that's been an ongoing thing now over a couple of movies, and everyone loves Guardians of the Galaxies, as far as I'm aware. I think they're great, those movies. But I mean, if you're going to argue how much can you keep having this baby Yoda in the story without it getting tired and boring, I think no one's really bored of Groot
I'd back you up on that one. I like the child. I really like him, and I like to see where he's going with it. I do personally feel that
it's not over the top. It's just there.
This is the thing that fans were most worried about: was Baby Yoda or the child going to be this little gimmick? And so far, I would have to say no. I don't think Baby or the child is a gimmick. And I think so far, I mean, we've seen little things that the child has done. I wanted to ask you about that because I don't know much about it, but I do know that there was kind of some complaints about the child using basically the Force. Remember when that creature was coming towards Mando and it stopped? I mean, I want to ask you guys, how did you feel about that? Was that controversial to you, or because I don't know the EU, as you said, there's an extended universe and all of this. Do you have a problem with that?
I think it's quite exciting. I mean, if we look at Rey, you know, he's just wonderful at everything from the word go, and you know, has all these powers without any training and the rest of it. But we're talking about a species that Yoda comes from. And Yoda, as we know, is like one of the most powerful entities within the Force, you know, like one of the most powerful Jedis that we've seen. And I mean, we don't really know if this is Baby Yoda, if it's a clone of Yoda, if it's the child of Yoda, or anything really at this stage. And that's always good to have that little ongoing mystery. But we don't know the extent of its powers. And I mean, if it's a reincarnation of Yoda or something like that, it'd be more interesting. It'd be more like within the subtext of the Force, right? Because it's based on Buddhism, basically.
Well, so we did have the Clone Wars, didn't we? So they could have cloned. You're right, though. They could have cloned Baby.
We just don't know. But that's interesting to me, and the fact it's so powerful at such a young age. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's retained the memories of Yoda. Who knows? You know, like that's the beauty of it.
The thing about the force healing that happened as well too, I think a lot of people were bothered with it, but I mean, force healing has happened beforehand within the various different medias that's been used in Star Wars beforehand. I mean, we see Cade Skywalker uses it, or a version of it, particularly when he's using a sort of force healing. But I think an awful lot of people really hone in on the fact that if it's force healing and it can heal grave wounds, why then did Obi-Wan Kenobi not do anything for Qui-Gon Jinn? Why is, you know, Vader's wounds a problem, and so on and so forth? And I do understand that point of view as well too, of course, but I feel like that maybe because they've used that force power now, it's on them now to explain how they've used it. I do think it was possibly a directive from Lucasfilm because they were going to involve her in Rise of Skywalker, and I think when that movie didn't succeed, I wouldn't be too surprised if you've seen that power now go away. I wouldn't be too shocked if they decide to say, right, okay, let's forget about that one and not use it again. I personally think with the child, I really like the child, but I do think when they set themselves out and said he's 50 years of age, okay, great. But at what age does that species start to talk? Because I think then you can build another character around that character rather than it being a cutesy little character, kind of like Lee said with the Groot character. But I do want to see it now eventually interact. So what happens next? Do you have to jump another 50 years, which essentially puts a lot of people that we've met already out of the timeline? This could be a long-term plan. I think the child could be for Star Wars, possibly.
Well, I mean, it might reach puberty really quickly, and that could, like, we don't know the physiognomy of this baby, so it could just happen overnight. And can you imagine, like, a hormonal, unbalanced Baby Yoda just grows teenage Yoda?
It's interesting that you talked about Baby Yoda and whether Baby Yoda or the child is going to start talking. Disney Star Wars, someone just put up on Twitter yesterday, I actually seen this. There's a Baby Yoda doll or whatever, a child doll that actually talks.
Really?
Yeah.
They're going to want to sell toys, and what great way of selling a new Baby Yoda is one that goes, Mama, whatever.
Yeah.
Mando.
I have one that's an animatronic and it makes noises. Yeah. I have an animatronic one that's from Hasbro, and that's really good.
Sell more Yoda toys if you have it speaking. I mean, it's going to happen. It's got to happen.
There was something that happened in the show in season 1 was the fact that the Mandalorian took off his helmet and his face was revealed. Now, that actually annoyed some Star Wars fans. And I have to be honest, when I watched it myself, I even turned to the wife and I was like, why did they do that? You know, I was kind of like, they didn't need to reveal his face. Now, it doesn't, like, you know, it hasn't tainted the way I look at Mando, but I just, I thought there was no need to do that, because isn't there a thing where they're not even supposed to show their face to anybody?
Take the mystery away from the mystery of the character. I didn't have a problem with it. I didn't. I mean, it was explained in the scene. It's not in front of another living person, right? But that was done in front of an android. I mean, I'm not entirely sure of the law. Ninja Knight will know, but personally, I don't have a problem with that. And listen, anything can be done with good writing. As long as there's good writing, you can explain pretty much anything, even within a kind of restrictive canon. You can still, if you're creative enough, create excuses for things to happen. And that's fair enough to me. I don't have a problem with that. Nothing is set in stone as long as it's written well. And that, you have to have a little bit of creative freedom in this, I think. And I think that would be fair. Listen, I know from the rumors going out there that that our Mandalorian actor, what's his name again, Pedro Pascal, he wasn't happy wearing the helmet all the time. Listen, as someone who understands actors on a certain degree, I can understand that. He's the main guy. Let's go to the first season, episode 1 of the second season. He's almost eclipsed by what I assume will be his new sidekick, I guess, the Marshal. But
just don't go into, because we're gonna be.
Yeah, I know, but I just want to touch on that to make my point, which is, as a leading man in his own show, not being able to show his face, yet his sidekick has, clearly in shot the whole time. He steals the scenery. Now look, actors have got egos. I understand that, but think about it. If you're the lead actor in your own show and no one gets to see your face, you don't get that kind of recognition, really.
I get you, yeah.
You know what I mean? And you are throwing yourself out, I assume, in some scenes at least, he's throwing himself around in this suit. So he's putting the work in, but he's not getting the same sort of recognition. Because as an actor, your name and your face is your brand.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. So I can understand. Well, to find reasons, to write reasons in to be able to have his helmet off whenever they're, I mean, listen, I get it. I get it. But hey, it's in his contract. I don't know what's in his contract particularly, but I can understand where he's coming from. That's all I say.
What I find interesting is it seems to be a thing that Filoni has kind of designed, and again, Filoni messes around with the lore an awful lot, in my opinion. I actually don't like Dave Filoni whatsoever.
I don't think many people do.
Yeah, he's gone against what George Lucas wanted a number of times. He's made up rules kind of as he went along, and I think that would start to bother Pedro Pascal. And I'm just going to go back on something that Pedro Pascal said. When they announced the cast of The Mandalorian, himself, Gina Carano, and of course then the brilliant Carl Weathers, when they came out on stage and they spoke then to the crowd, he said, this isn't some cartoon, and was kind of dismissive of it. So I'd be curious whether he is actually up on the lore and whether he understands of it and seeing what happens beforehand, because if he did, he's seen Jango Fett in the first movie remove his helmet at will. He's seen Mandalorians in the Clone Wars remove their helmets at will, and the same in Rebels. Now that shifts with Boba Fett in the original trilogy, and you have him wearing his helmet all of the time. So whether Filoni wanted to go back and do something similar to that, I'm unclear, because again, like as we know from the Legends and stuff, that Boba Fett wasn't actually a Mandalorian from the Legends side of things. Now, whether they decide to shift that in this new canon, I suppose it's a wait and see. But my biggest question would be, clearly Pedro Pascal interviewed for this role, and he was, I don't think he was sought out personally. I think he auditioned for it. And I would imagine at some point in time, he was sat down and told, look, you are primarily going to be a voice actor here. And it is clear to see that because of the multiple people we've seen on set that are actually physically embodying the Mandalorian. So what I don't really understand is, if you wanted to have a helmeted character all the time, why you wouldn't then have a voice actor? Two reasons for that. Voice actors, by and large, are very affable people. There's an awful lot of them out there. I would generally say the majority of celebrities that I met that are voice actors are absolutely gentlemen and ladies in comparison to some of the actual face actors. I know that that's a term that they use. I know that that would be something that I would certainly look at. I would prefer a voice actor to voice the character because, again, it's a lot easier then for you then to keep that person on board, and it's just a job similar to James Earl Jones as Darth Vader. What I don't really understand is that you were always going to have a problem if you had this headcanon of the Mandalorians wear their helmets, and then, like you said, and it's touching on season 2, and this problem was always going to happen, in my opinion, where someone else is shown facially, and of course they are going to take that scenery. You would not have had that problem with a voice actor. I guarantee it. You know?
Yeah, no, you make a good point there. I don't know. It hasn't ruined it for me in revealing his face, but you are right. He would have signed a contract and would have known what this role was all about. And he does, you know, and Lee is right. It's their face, you know, it is their brand, you know, and the fact that, you know, if he was told, well, listen, you're not going to be seen. And he probably like, and once they hired him, they probably thought, you know, well, if he goes now, it's going to throw it all up the air. So maybe they did kind of concede that little piece and say, okay, well, maybe we'll do it in an episode. But look, you know, do you think we'll get into season 2 now in a minute? We'll get into season 2. We've got about what? How many minutes have we got left? We've got 16 minutes left anyway.
Well, we should sort of touch upon a little bit more of season 1, I think, because we haven't really covered much of the actual story.
So I mean, right? So they're 20-minute episodes, 24-minute episodes. So we've got what, 8 of them, isn't it? 8 episodes, right? Do you just want to? Yeah. So I don't know where to actually start, man. I should have probably watched the bleeding show again. To be honest.
Well, you can start from the start, which is the first one, which is the chapter 1, which is just titled "The Mandalorian." If you want to start with there.
Go ahead, Ninja Knight, because you're more knowledgeable, and then once you start talking, there'll be things that we'll pick up on, and I'll be able to point in. So go ahead there.
Yeah, well, the first episode, as you know, starts off with a meeting guild with the guild leader, Grief Karga, who's played by Carl Weathers, and I really like him. And then you see that the Mandalorian is after accepting an under the table kind of bounty, and he's going to go to the planet of Navarro. So he's getting this from a client who was played by Werner Herzog, and Werner Herzog, of course, is a very famous German director, and he is kind of very aloof, and there is a scientist hanging around, and then we have these remnant stormtroopers, these dirty-looking stormtroopers, which I think is a fantastic idea. And there's a brief talk about the Galactic Empire and the chaos that has ensued after that, and I think it's really interesting stuff. But what I think is very interesting is that you notice the Doctor, and that is Dr. Pershing, and he wants the asset that they're talking about brought back alive. And it's something that I really liked about that. But before I go on and talk a little bit more about that, I think the opening scene as well too, when the Mandalorian is going to get a bounty, really sets the pace very nicely. It's on a world in the middle of nowhere. It's somewhere we haven't seen before. We see him, we see the ship, we see how he's able to.
It's like a barroom wild west, isn't it? You know, that's the joy of it. Yeah.
It turns into a barroom brawl in a way. We see how skilled he is. He uses a move that I'm not aware that we've seen before, when he uses the door to basically off screen deal with someone, and then he brings that bounty back. But when we move forward into the episode, I think the character of Dr. Pershing is going to be someone that might pop up later, because you touched on it as well earlier on, problem being you talked about the cloning, and I think that is something that could be done, because we see a symbol on his sleeve, and to me that might have been a bit of a hint. But the story then, we get to meet Quill as well too, who was played by the great Nick Nolte, and personally I think probably my favourite character from season 1. I absolutely love the way he was played. And he arrives then on this planet, and Quill tries to help him out and talk to him, and he has the famous "I have spoken," and he directs him then to an area, and it's kind of like a lone gunman. He says to him, look, people go to that place and they don't come back. It's heavily fortified. They're guarding something out there. And in the midst of it, then the Mandalorian meets IG-11, voiced by Taika Waititi, who was an incredibly irritating individual. But they go through basically clearing out the whole place, and then we are met with the child at the end of the first episode, and the choice that the Mando has is to kill it, or to either take it back, or let the IG unit kill it.
And I love the way that he emotes, like the way he sort of tilts his head as he looks at this baby Yoda. And it's really clever how they sort of managed to get that that kind of confusion and you know, crikey, what do I do? You know, you can
Yeah.
feel it. You know, there is that tension, that moral conundrum, and I do like a good moral conundrum in a show. I think it gives the audience something to think about. And it obviously we're all don't do it. We know he's not gonna, but yeah, I mean, obviously we can't go through each episode
every
in as much
episode.
wonderful detail, but like I will say that I think some of the best episodes really sort of do have these sort of conundrums and these sort of situations where you think, well, how are you going to deal with that? Like my personal favorite episode, I think, from series 1 is The Prisoner.
Yeah,
because that
really
is so exciting. That's proper Star Warsy stuff going on in there, and I love it. And it's just so full of backstabbing and intrigue and all these characters that, you know, and you don't know who's going to make it out. You know, it's great.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Aliens, isn't it? It's got like a feeling of siege,
the strobe lighting in that episode of the Mando basically coming up and attacking people. I thought that was a beautiful scene. Now, it was very reminiscent of like John Wick, but I loved it. I think it just showed how skillful Mando is as well too. And I think I think it was a nice bird's eye view for us as an audience of what it's like to be the other members in the team. And you look at him and see him do his thing, and it's like, holy crap!
There's another character in this that I mean, apart from Gina Carano, who's brilliant and is you know, absolutely believable as a kick-ass female character, which gives it credibility. I think that she's not a waif who's suddenly going to kick, you know, really large blokes and, you know, take them out with like a punch and stuff like that. So she's totally believable. She's fantastic in this. So I can't wait to see more of it. But there's another character in this I really love as well, and that's the mechanic woman.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Lee. The mechanic woman with the droid.
Yeah, she's really great. I love her. I think she's also very Star Warsy. Yeah. And her little sort of her droids that sort of fix his ship, which is a beautiful ship. And they're great sort of side sort of characters, and that again reminds me very much of sort of more the sort of prequel area. But they're really, really good fun little characters in the background. She's like quite a motherly figure, and she's great, and she's not annoying. This is a wonderful thing. The female roles in this, apart from in was it Sanctuary, where they're pretty annoying. she's a really, really great character.
That's the good thing about
I'm glad to see her in
the development in this show is absolutely terrific, and the characters that Favreau has brought in are all likable.
Yeah, exactly. There really is not much in the way of annoying characters apart from Sanctuary. But I mean, it's a real joy, and that's the thing. I can watch it and feel joy watching it, and that is something that's been lacking in Star Wars for a good number of years. And I think it's a bit of somewhat of a relief, really, to end up with something that, look, hey, it's not complicated. Yeah, there are some plot holes and some things wrong with it. We get that. It's not going to be to everyone's taste. We get that. There's going to be some die-hard Star Wars fans who just totally aren't in board. Some are going, it's okay, which is fair enough. You know, different horses for different causes. But one thing that I think that most of us can agree on, even though there are going to be some who absolutely hate it, but I say most of us, if you're thinking about it honestly, there is so much to like, at least, and there's not very much to dislike, in my opinion. I think that, you know, you can forgive its multiple flaws for the enjoyment of what it is on the face of it. And I think on the face of it, it is an honest attempt to reach an olive branch out to some degree to the fandom and give us something we want.
An olive branch by Disney, or is this Jon Favreau, like, you know, saying, listen, you've screwed up, I'm in now, I'm going to show you how it's done? Because that's the way it seems to be. This guy seems to understand, and there is a bit of a criticism that people are saying he doesn't understand Star Wars. I disagree. I think if you look at what he's given us so far,
this is the most Star Warsy thing since Rogue One. Since Rogue One, this is the most Star Warsy thing we've had, and I'm relieved, because it is like that little faint heartbeat. They're saying Star Wars is still alive.
Yeah.
You know?
I think there are a clear couple of things that happened in season 1 that I think we all know about as well too. It's been widely reported and widely shown. Recently, Favreau has said that the fans should be respected and that you should make things for the fans. So he's clearly a fan. And I've seen a number of individuals say that on good authority that he is a fan and a super fan. And I don't think you have to look too far into it when you see that he brought George Lucas on set. We do know that George Lucas wasn't a keen fan of what's gone on with the sequel trilogy. He has made absolutely no comment on it. And he hasn't been invited to places as well too, particularly sets, it seems. When you then look at the way Favreau has conducted this whole thing and said that he is a fan, that is fantastic. When you also know that allegedly Bob Iger has been on set and delivered notes, particularly with the tanking of the franchise at the time, I think that's important to see. I personally think between himself and Bob Chapek, they probably got around the idea of Kathleen Kennedy absolutely destroying the IP and decided to implement this one bit of hope into the IP.
It does seem she's been kept at arm's length on this, which is...
She has been kept at very much so arm's length. And I will say, if you watch on Disney Plus and you see the behind the scenes, it's fascinating, the episode that she turns up in and where Favreau is sitting there. It's fascinating to see the body language. It's fascinating to see how they talk to each other. And it's fascinating to see the way Favreau conducts himself and what way Kathleen Kennedy conducts herself. She can't help herself but keep speaking out. And that to me is a person that is speaking out of desperation. Whereas Favreau is very comfortable. He's very cool. He is happy to hear points and she is desperately trying to get her point across. And he knows full well that this is going to be a show that is going to be successful. He has surrounded himself with people that are successful. He's kept a very tight leash at the moment on Dave Filoni, which is good. He's kept a tight leash on Taika Waititi. Some of the directors I don't feel he kept a tight enough leash on in season 1, but it looks like he might remedy that in season 2.
Definitely Bryce Dallas Howard. There was
too much rain on that one, but I suppose that has something to do with that. Particularly because her father is Ron Howard, who got the solo gig after Lord and Miller had been removed.
I remember it well. I remember it well being an extra on Solo when he came in. Although I will say he was very professional, whereas before we were on set and we would be doing a scene for like a week, doing the same scene over and over again, like 20 hours a day or something stupid. It was insane because they were trying to allow actors to make stuff up on set, and Kathleen Kennedy was losing her mind because it was just like, this is not on the script. So she kept going up to with the script, pointing at it and sort of being really agitated. It was insane. Well, to be honest with you, when they were gone, the atmosphere on set was completely different. We rushed through things so much quicker. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he wanted. Listen, the result was a garbled mess, obviously, because that's what was going to happen because of all the stuff that they've been left with, really.
But that's why they put a professional in charge. And Favreau, I mean, look now forward than him kickstarting the MCU.
Get it back on budget as much as possible. Anyway, and put it through over the finish line because at the time, I mean, they were dragging their heels on scenes that didn't really need to be heel dragged on. Really, it was just chaos, utter chaos. And that's all I can really say. I shouldn't really say more. But listen, mistakes happen. She made massive mistakes. This, I don't think they could have afforded to allow her to be too heavily involved to make the same mistakes again. And I think it was a wise decision. And I really hope that the damage that has been done can kind of gradually sort of dissipate as we go through this series. I really hope they don't fall down any holes on this because everything kind of hinges on this at the moment.
You made an interesting point as well too there about action figures earlier on, and as a fan of action figures and someone who collects them, it's quite strange that there was nothing prepared at the time of the Mandalorian's release. Now there was no 6-inch black figures really that were going to be
left. I think they kind of realized how bad
I think there is a part. I think that's partially true. I think that there is some sort of a reason that they didn't want the leak of the child happening, which is true also because we've seen over the last couple of years, they're essentially called toilers. They're spoilers for things when toys get released at times because you don't know what's coming, and I can understand that with the child. But I mean, we are, what is it now, nearly a year apart from this fourth season. We still don't have a Grief Karga. We do not have a Quill. We do not have anybody from the Prisoner episode. We have the Mandalorian and the Cara Dune character, and we have a baby, well, a child character as well too now. So that to me says that there might be internal problems at Hasbro, particularly with the budget. And I've covered that recently, that the budget has been slashed, and you're starting to see heavy repaints in a line that's absolutely brand new. And I think, like, that's why I'm saying to you, I think that's why you're seeing the Jawas. I think it's why you're seeing the Tusken Raiders, because they thought of a budget cost of how do we keep this as budgetary as possible. And you're seeing it in front of your eyes, but he's utilising what little he has the same way he did with Iron Man.
Yeah,
and he's doing it.
Right. You're absolutely right. And this is why I think he's the right man, because he's given a shoestring budget, and look at what he's created. Look at what he's produced so far. I mean, overall, we can say that he's done a fairly good job. And I will agree, keep Kathleen Kennedy away from this at all costs, and even Dave Filoni, as you keep mentioning about him, keep him on a tight leash.
Well, look, he's doing his job. He's won you over as a new fan.
Yeah.
You know, so there is hope. You know,
there is
new hope. A new hope.
There is. You're right. Absolutely spot on. Listen, I mean, this for me is, as you said, Lee, earlier, bar Rogue One, this is probably the second best thing Disney have produced with the Star Wars name. And you know, we will be doing season 2, episode 1, but I think we were all, most fans were blown away by the season premiere. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, but we will be getting into that. But look, to me, they seem to be improving all the time, and I think once that continues, I think that the few that are out there that are still, you know, complaining about this will eventually, hopefully, come on board. I do honestly believe that this show should be supported. Listen, the Phantom Menace were born out of the sequel trilogy. This was the Disney Star Wars response to that, and they gave them the Mandalorian, right? They should support.
And I think we should give it a chance.
Yeah.
I think this is a genuine attempt to try and bridge that mess that they created, that chasm between them and the fans. Listen, I'm not a fan of Disney by any stretch of the imagination, but this, I think, is a genuine attempt to do something for the fans, and I think the fans should give it a go. They should kind of maybe relax a little on being harsh. Listen, I understand all the reasons for why they are suspicious and why they are angry, and rightly so, really, truly rightly so. But at the same time, you know, like some YouTubers have said, you know, at what point do you allow them to apologize? This is their way of apologizing, I think. And at what point do we say, okay, we'll come around the table here, we'll see how you're doing, we'll give you a chance, fuck this up, it's done. So they really, really have to stick to, I mean, it's a great start so far with the first episode of season 2. We'll get into that in the next stream. But I think that, I think that this is a fair start.
Right, we've got 5 minutes to go, lads. So if you want to add anything else, I know, like, you know, I would have loved to have a longer stream on this, but it's kind of my fault. We should have done this last week, but we've got limited time on it. So we've got 5 minutes left. Is there anything else you want to add about season 1? And then if you want to give us our overall rating for the 4th season of The Mandalorian, and tell me overall how you felt about it.
Yeah, I think I really like season 1. I think when you see the disparity in runtime of each episode, I think it's quite clear that it was probably a rehashed version of the Boba Fett movie that was supposed to be done by Josh Trank, particularly with the kind of bum armor that he's using in the start of the season, and then quite quickly does end up getting a new armor, brand spanking new. Overall, I really like the story. I like the idea of the child. I like the ideas that there is a Mandalorian culture that's going to be explored. I like the fact that it is, in their opinion, a religion. So it means that anybody and everybody can be involved rather than setting it to one set of individuals. I really do like that. I think that that is very much so a good idea. I like Jon Favreau because he is somebody that has kicked off the MCU. He has a serious pedigree with the Iron Man movies. I think once he keeps Dave Filoni, like I've said, on a very tight leash and uses him basically as a human dictionary for the Star Wars universe, I think that that is a good idea. I think Favreau knows his way around things, and I just hope that he doesn't get his eye wiped by Dave Filoni, because for me, he is a man on the inside for Kathleen Kennedy with some of the stuff that he's absolutely said in the past, and I would be very wary of him. I think ultimately, though, when you look at the show, the merchandise that it's selling very well, it was given a 120 million budget for season 1. Allegedly, it's 20 million less for season 2, which would sort of really kind of say what's going on at the moment. And again, that could obviously be interior politics going on, that they want to try and be underhanded with Jon Favreau. And we'll wait and see, because there is a contract, Kathleen Kennedy's contract, that's supposedly running up soon. The sooner it runs up, the better. And I personally think give Favreau the role of running the whole show.
Yeah, I agree. I think he should be the man that take over the whole Star Wars franchise. I mean, and you are certainly right. I mean, he has some pedigree after kicking off the MCU. And I mean, that first Iron Man movie is absolutely spectacular. Now, I am a fan of the second movie, but not as much as the first movie. But he did kick it all off. And I mean, he deserves huge credit. Listen, if there are internal forces trying to sabotage him by giving him less of a budget, well, let's be honest. We all know who that is. Then, you know, it's so obvious that this person in Kathleen Kennedy is jealous right now, because she's had 3 chances to give fans something that they want, and she's failed miserably. And Jon Favreau has come out with this little tiny show, and he's given us, you know, as I said, die-hard Star Wars fans are going to be skeptical. They're going to be cautious when it comes to this. But what I would say to everybody out there that hasn't seen this show, I would suggest that you go and watch it yourselves.
Yeah, I think the main problem is it's behind a paywall. People are subbed out. You know, people have subscribed to, you know, all these different streaming networks and all the rest of it. And I think that is a problem. To get it to a wider audience, I think it does need a bit more exposure. I think they've over-egged the idea of Disney Plus and its availability and its content. You know, the amount of content on there that's new. I really
particularly when you think about
a hostage to fortune, quite honestly.
Particularly when you think about the delayed release between the USA and the rest of the world as well, too, for this season 1.
It's spoiled. I mean, it's spoiled. Because one thing that, because of social media and the rest of it, because of that delay across the world, you know, America gets to see it first and they get to discuss it. And of course, everyone wants to kind of know what's going on. And the spoiler territory of it is too great. And I think that's also adding to its difficulty in reaching that audience, because once people know the story, they know whether to get on board or not, or you know, what's the point if, you know, they know everything, because you can't really avoid it if people are talking about it, especially within the fandom menace and such and such. But listen, my point on this, my closing statement on this is, I'll be interested to see where it goes. I'd be interested to see if Cara Dune, or Dune, if you're from the UK, ends up as a Mandalorian herself. That could be interesting. Maybe that could be where they take that character. That might be good. But it's interesting as well that for all the crowing in the fandom menace about bad father figures, bad father role models, listen, we've got a great father figure in the Mandalorian here. And that can't be overstated. We've actually got a good father figure role here, and I think that's a great role model for boys and for parents alike. I think that's great, and I think that should be commended. It's really great to finally see a good male role model like
Yeah.
that. Even though he's a hired killer, but hey, he's looking after this baby Yoda, and that's great. That's a good message, I think.
It is. But guys, we're about to run out of time on this stream. We've got people waiting for us in the live chat on the other stream. But before we do leave, I'd like to get you our overall rating for season 1 of The Mandalorian. And I'm sorry for everybody out there. We would have loved to go into a bit more detail and talk individual episodes.
Well, we can cover it in the live stream.
I mean, when season 2 is over, we may actually do a watch along and start back from the very beginning and do them, because I think they're worth doing, because I want to get fans on board with this, because I really do think this is a great little show, and I hope it can improve. For me, I'm going to give overall this 4th season an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
So, Lee, what would you give it?
Me? I loved it. You know, I mean, after that void of Star Wars and that kind of really deflated feeling, you know, it's very demoralizing. I'm more than happy to give it a chance. I was very skeptical at first, and I watched it. I loved it. I was very entertained, and I think that I'm going to be generous and give it an 8.5.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now let's talk. Listen, that's brilliant. Actually, well done, Lee. Listen, I do think that this little show deserves more.
Yeah, come on. I know it's Disney, but come on.
I'm really hoping for that. It becomes a huge success, because you know what? For Star Wars fans as well, they do deserve something.
Yeah.
And this is a good starting point. But Ninja Knight, I want to ask you, what is your rating for overall for this season? What would you give it?
I would absolutely love to give it a 10 out of 10, and I would lean that way personally. But I think with episode 4 and Sanctuary, I think it did devolve into a little bit of boring territory for the most part, and which is quite saddening for me, because I love the Cara Dune character and I'm a big fan of Gina Carano. But I think that episode was very meandering. It kind of was like, it didn't really further anything really too much for us. It did further us the idea of the Mandalorian culture, but that was kind of really it. And the child, of course, was quite cutesy in that episode. But I think ultimately there's an awful lot that I like about it. I like the design. I like the music. I like the rifle when he vaporized the Jawas. I think that was fascinating. I never thought I'd see myself be upset at the passing of an Ugnaught in the Star Wars universe, but yet it was done. I think Nick Nolte was absolutely wonderful as Quill. I love Carl Weathers as Grief Karga, and I think Giancarlo Esposito as this Moff Gideon is going to be hugely interesting. And of course, the variation of stormtroopers that we've seen in this. For me, it's a 9.5, and it loses that half mark purely because of the Sanctuary episode being a bit disjointed.
I mean, I give it an 8.5 because I think there's still room for it to vastly improve, and I think that those extra points to get it over the line, really, to make it a really high score. I think that it does need to go there. It needs to deliver. It needs to do something punchy and keep us excited, and not flag, and definitely not go into the realms of wokedom. It needs to avoid that at all costs. I'm praying to every Jedi in the galaxy that this will happen. We could easily have the rug pulled from under our feet. We'll have to wait and see. But that's the fun of the excitement now, isn't it? Is it going to be white? Is it not? You?
Well, I mean, we're going to be discussing it now in a few minutes. We're going to be going live in a few minutes to discuss it. But let's be honest, I mean, without going into too much detail, I think season 2 has started off very well, mate. So, you know, I think the future does look bright. Once Favreau, sticks to his guns and doesn't let people interfere. And I think he has kept people at arm's length. And if he continues to do that, I do believe that this show could become a huge hit. It's a slow burner right now, but I do think it's going to explode. Something will happen in it and it'll explode. Because I just think that's Favreau for you.
Yeah, merchandise for it flies off the shelves.
And the thing is, I haven't been bored by it. Apart from that one episode. Every episode, I've been entertained. You know, it may not be the most amazing. Wow, that was like, I never thought that would happen. Or then, forget all that. I had a jolly good romp. It was good fun. and I wasn't bored.
That's it. Right, listen, we're going to have to leave it there. I've sent you the link, guys, to the live chat, so if you just want to just leave here, but thanks for coming on and for being part of this. Again, we will, myself, Ninja Knight, Problem Being, and we'll get a couple of other guests, and we will do season 1 watch-alongs at some stage. We'll leave that till next year when season 2 is complete as well, so we can do the whole lot over the next few weeks and stuff next year. So yeah, that'll be something to look forward to. But guys, listen, thank you for joining me here.
Thank you.
And for coming on and doing this review with me. I'm sorry it took so long for us to do. My fault, of course, but you know me.
Never blame yourself.
But,
this is the way.
I blame you. I blame you.
Yeah, look, I don't like blaming others. If I'm at fault, I'm at fault. But listen, that's it, folks. We are done. I hope you enjoyed this. If you are watching this video now on the YouTube channel, don't forget that we do have episode 1 of season 2 of The Mandalorian, The Marshal, coming up. We're going to be doing a watch along and discussion of that. So join us for that. Ninja Knight, thanks for joining us. Problem Being,
thank you, man.
And I will leave you with this, guys. Well, that completely froze again. I don't know what's going on with this computer. But listen, we'll